What's going on, everyone? Hope you're all doing great. Today, I wanted to talk about something pretty interesting that just dropped for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. And if you've been keeping an eye on this game since launch, you probably already know it's been quite the ride so far. But recently, the devs pushed out a new hotfix, version 1.0.1, and even though it's technically small, it actually matters a lot more than you might think. So let's unpack everything about it, what it changes, what players are saying, and maybe why this tiny update is actually a big step for the game's stability and trust in the community. So first off, this hotfix went live on October 23rd, 2025, and it's currently only for PC users. That means if you're playing on Steam, GOG, or the Epic Games Store, you should have already seen an update notification pop up. Console players for now will have to wait a bit longer. And the most direct change in this update is that it addresses a major issue that was causing the game to freeze right on the title screen. Yeah, you'd load the game, expect to get into your vampiric adventure, and instead just stare at that Bloodlines 2 logo like it's judging you. For a lot of people, this was game-breaking. Literally. So the team at Paradox Interactive and the Chinese Room pushed out this patch specifically to fix that freezing issue. Now, it might sound like a small fix, right? One single issue, one single line in the patch notes. But here's where it gets interesting. The devs also mentioned that after installing this update, the first launch of the game might take longer than usual. That's because of how some internal caching and verification work after the patch is applied. So if you load up the game and it hangs for a minute or two, don't panic. It's just setting things up properly, and after that first load, everything should run smoother. It's not you, it's not your PC, it's the game doing its little internal cleanup. What I appreciate is that Paradox was pretty transparent about it. They didn't just silently push a patch and leave players guessing. They made a short post explaining exactly what the fix does, and even shared a few gameplay tips along with it. Now, that part caught people's attention because it's not something you see every day in patch notes. Usually it's just a list of bug fixes and performance tweaks. But this time, they included small hints that almost sound like they're teasing how players should approach some of the more confusing moments in the game. For example, they reminded players that if something's blocking your path, maybe try using telekinesis. It's a subtle nudge, but it also shows they're aware some people are getting stuck, not necessarily because of bugs, but because of environmental puzzles or mechanics that aren't always obvious. Then they added a reminder about using Fabienne's abilities on people and objects. Again, something that newer players might not think to experiment with. And the note about checking pictures and paintings with heightened senses, that's such a specific tip that you can tell it's tied to an actual area where players are missing something. It's a clever way for the devs to guide players without changing the game itself. There's also the little mention about elevators not working. They said, if the elevator doesn't work, use heightened senses and look for a vent. That line alone has been floating around on community forums and Reddit because people thought their elevators were bugged. Turns out it was part of the level design. That's kind of hilarious and frustrating at the same time. So yeah, if you're wandering around thinking something's broken, maybe it's not. It might just be the game expecting you to use your powers in a different way. Now, aside from the official fix, there's been a lot of community talk after the update rolled out. Some players started reporting that their save files disappeared or weren't showing up immediately after installing the hotfix. It's not in the official notes, but it's been mentioned enough times to be worth acknowledging. From what people have figured out, it's not that your saves are gone. It's more like the game takes a moment to sync them properly again, especially if you're using Steam Cloud. If this happens to you, don't freak out. Try restarting your PC, verify your game files, or check your local save directory. Most players who did that found their saves right where they should be. Speaking of verifying files, if you want to double check that you actually got the update, it's pretty simple. Go to your Steam library, right-click on the game, select Properties, then go to Updates. Make sure auto updates are turned on. From there, you can go to Local Files and verify the game's integrity. That forces Steam to compare your files with the latest version on their servers. If it says you're missing something, it'll download it right away. You can also check the build number on SteamDB. It should match the new one from October 23rd. Now, stepping back a little bit, this update is kind of symbolic. Because Bloodlines 2 had a very rocky development cycle, we all know it. The project switched studios, changed creative direction, and spent years in development limbo. When the Chinese Room took over, a lot of fans were cautiously optimistic. The game finally launched earlier this month, but not without issues. Some people loved the atmosphere and the writing. Others complained about performance problems, stutters, or small bugs that pulled them out of the immersion. So seeing a hotfix come this quickly is reassuring. It shows that Paradox and the Chinese Room aren't just going to leave players hanging. They're paying attention and reacting to the issues fast. It's also worth mentioning that this hotfix is just the start. The devs have already confirmed that they're working on more updates to address stability, optimization, and gameplay polish. In fact, some people on SteamDB noticed a few internal testing branches being updated even before this patch went live. That's a good sign. It means they're testing more fixes behind the scenes, probably for things like frame pacing, memory leaks, and quest progression bugs. And honestly, the game deserves that attention, because underneath the bugs and performance hiccups, there's a really cool world here. Bloodlines 2 captures that dark, seductive atmosphere that made the original so beloved. The city feels alive, or maybe undead is a better word, and the writing still has that sarcastic, philosophical edge. So seeing the team start to smooth out the rough edges makes me hopeful. The fact that they're communicating with the community through these patch notes and little gameplay tips adds a nice personal touch too. Now I know some players have been skeptical. A few folks were disappointed that the first big patch didn't bring more content or balance tweaks. But remember, this hotfix wasn't about gameplay rebalancing, it's literally a stability patch. The next updates are expected to dig deeper into those areas. Paradox tends to roll out patches in phases like this. First, hotfixes for crashes and freezes, then performance optimization, and finally, quality of life or gameplay adjustments. So if you're waiting for combat tuning or dialogue fixes, that's probably coming later. Another thing people noticed after this patch is slightly faster loading times after the first launch. Now that's not officially confirmed by Paradox, but players are reporting that once the game gets past that first slow startup, the subsequent loads feel smoother. That's probably because of some back-end caching adjustments. So yeah, even if the notes sound small, the actual feel of the game seems to have improved a bit. Community reactions overall have been pretty positive toward this update. Most people are just relieved that the title screen freeze is gone because that was stopping them from even playing. Some have been joking that this patch should have been called Hotfix The Awakening, since they can finally get into the game again. It's a small fix, but it genuinely restores access for a lot of players who were locked out before. And you can tell that Paradox is taking notes from other modern live service games where communication is key. Even though Bloodlines 2 isn't a live service title in the traditional sense, the way they're handling updates with transparency, quick patches, and community engagement makes it feel like they're trying to rebuild trust after such a long and uncertain development period. One detail that's kind of cool is the Steam build ID for this patch, 2499156, for those who like keeping track. It's small trivia, but it helps confirm you're on the right version. And the release timing makes sense too. It's right before the weekend, giving players a chance to jump in and test the fix while the team monitors feedback. Usually devs prefer to release hotfixes midweek, but this time they probably wanted to get it out fast since the freeze issue was blocking so many people. I think what really stands out is that the Chinese room seems to be balancing technical maintenance with creative care. They're not just fixing bugs quietly, they're engaging the community with small tips that remind you how to enjoy the game more effectively. It gives off the feeling that they're not only patching, but also guiding the experience a bit, which is kind of refreshing. Looking forward, what can we expect next? Well, based on the dev communication so far, it sounds like they're preparing more fixes that'll target frame rate consistency, maybe tweak some AI behavior, and address those occasional quest triggers that sometimes bug out.